Shut up and sit down.
Hello, my friend. You are listening to the Dance Studio Scaled podcast, the number one place for innovative marketing, retention strategies, and business growth ideas made just for dance studio owners. Now, this isn't your average business podcast. We're here to shake things up, simplify the hustle, and focus on real, actionable insights. I'm your host, Jen Dalton, and after 30 years of running studios, coaching owners, and scaling businesses, I know one thing's for sure. There's no one size fits all in this industry. You've got the passion, and I've got the tools to help you take it to the next level. So hit that subscribe button, grab a coffee, and let's scale your studio together. Hey friend, and welcome back to this week's episode of the podcast, and thank you so much for being here. I thought for today's episode, let's just have a bit of fun, and I would love for you to imagine that we are on a coaching call together. So you're sitting down, you've got your favorite drink, it might be coffee, tea, smoothie. You've also got your 2025 timetable open in front of you. You've got a pen in your hand and a little voice in your head saying, where on earth do I start? This is a task I know I have to do. I don't want to do this because I know it's going to take me so long. Well, I'm here and I'm going to tell you exactly what I would say and do if we were working through this side by side. Now, just in case you've missed this memo, I love timetabling, and I know that it makes me sound like a bit of a nerd, but that's maybe because I am. But to me, I really do just see it as a game. It's that creative puzzle. It's a strategic dance. I love the blend of the strategy and the creativity that it comes with. There's so much that can change in a studio just by how you shift your week. And that just lights me up. So, if you're moving blocks of classes and then something just clicks, that perfect configuration where a class will flow into another style, which then will flow into a different program with the teacher who can be only there at the studio at those times. You know, it's just like a little studio magic moment. And I live for that. And honestly, it's not because or just about the classes themselves. It's about how we as studio owners can claim back our time, claim back a little bit of control in our week, our sanity. And so then we can actually focus on the bits we want, leading our team, being there for our community, really working on the studio culture. When your timetable runs smoothly, so does everything else. So that impacts your staffing, your parents, the communication, enrollments, and ultimately your studio growth. Now, if you listened to last week's episode, I shared that families are just planning their years earlier and earlier these days. We already have some parents, I'm speaking to a couple of studio owners, and they have parents already saying, do you know what's happening next year? Which is crazy, right? But I also get it. And the fact we're days away from September is pretty crazy, but people are just wanting to be organized. They're wanting to be planned. And look, you don't have to rush this. And I know there's probably some of you listening is like, I have not thought about this. I will not think about this until everything else is done. And that is absolutely fine. That is your prerogative. But all I'm going to do is suggest something. And if you're the studio who releases your timetable first, then you are instantly going to become an easier choice because you're removing friction, you're removing workload, you're removing one more thing from a busy parent's to-do list. And that alone can lead to more families choosing you or families deciding to stay. And I'm not saying you need the glossy PDF, you need your website updated, everything ready to go. But what it does mean is that if you're even thinking about it, now is a really good time to start. So you can just give yourself the gift of space. So if you're ready to jump in, let's get started. And here's what I would walk you through in a coaching call. Okay, the first thing I would get you to do is have it printed out, having a hard copy in front of you. And yes, I know this is old school. I want you to print out your current timetable and make multiple copies and have them everywhere that you're hanging out. So maybe one in your office, having one in your bag that goes with you in the car, maybe even in the kitchen, depending how big your house is, but also making sure you've got one at the studio for the times you are at the studio. You need to be able to glance at it. You need to be able to scribble on it and sketch ideas and write down random thoughts. Now remember, this version isn't the final one. This is what I would call your messy middle. So it's your sketch pad, it's your thoughts. At the time, they might be in the middle of something else and something might trigger and you're like, just write it down. The more your brain sees it, the more ideas will naturally come, or more scenarios you'll be able to work through at random times. And because I don't want you to wait until you're ready to sit down for a full session, because this is where the mental game becomes overwhelming. Because you say, right, I've got 2 hours and I need to do the timetable. You put this pressure on yourself. All of a sudden these blocks appear. You can't see anything that's going on. You're trying to, maneuver all the students and the teachers and the timings, everything. So by doing this process, you just get to capture those ideas as they come. Use arrows, crossouts, whatever works. When it is time to focus in, then you've already tried a few of these versions mentally. And as I said, this isn't about having the perfect system or the perfect start. It's just about staying open to new ways of doing things. And you might find a flow for your week by simply just jotting down a note or a thought as it comes to you at the random times. Okay, so that would be the first thing. The next thing I would suggest is having a look at your timetable and trying to keep things the same where possible. So keeping the students who are coming on particular days where you can. Why, you might ask? Well, because flow matters, consistency matters, and parents, they are creatures of habit. And when you change days, you just introduce disruption. And it might not seem like a big deal to you, but it can be the difference between someone re-enrolling or not. Now, of course, there are exceptions. I absolutely get this. Maybe you've got a specialist teacher who can only come or is only available on certain nights. Maybe you run your seniors on a particular night that have been that night forever. And so eventually students are going to move into the senior program, and so they're going to have to change nights. I know it definitely was for us. Like, our seniors were always on a Wednesday night. So at that point, they had to change days. Or maybe you just need to combine levels, and that's totally fine. But if a student is simply moving up a level, can you consider keeping the time and the same and just rename the class to then reflect their progression? Anyway, something to think about. Just remember, the fewer decisions that you ask a parent to make, the better. When you give them a path of least resistance, you build loyalty without even trying. Okay, so next one is stacking strategically. Now, there is a really good chance that you've heard me speak about this before, and it makes me happy that I'm seeing more and more studios do this, because it really can be a game changer for you. Now, how can you stack your classes to increase uptake? To make it easier for kids to do multiple classes in one night, to give families a 1-night commitment or 2 nights over 4 nights. Now, again, there are variables with this, and each of you and your studios have different circumstances. I know this depends on the space that you have, how many studios you have, the schedule, the access to teachers' ability, your own ability to be where you need to be. But there is always room for strategy here. And when it's done well, this can massively improve your class placement and retention. Now, think about what a parent sees when they look at your timetable. So now I want you to think visually. Is it clear for them to see? Does it flow? Or does it look like chaos? Even the way you set it out for your families to see, you want it designed in a way that is clear and easy to read. And this is such an interesting thing, right? Because when we're building it, it makes so much sense to us. It's so easy and clear to see. So the thing that I suggest is first of all, color coding I think is really, really important, but then asking other people to see if they can understand it. People outside of your world, outside the dance world, and ask if they can. And if they're like, no, I'm confused, I thought this looked like this, then it may be suggestions for you to tweak it just to make it look clearer. Remember, we want least resistance as possible when a parent is looking at your timetable. Not even that, I mean, it can be explained obviously, but we don't want them thinking, oh my gosh, if this is what the timetable looks like, the business is going to be chaotic as well. So just little things like that. And I once had a client who was running 7 different age groups across 5 nights with no real pattern. And then after a few tweaks, she went down to 3 main age group blocks and cut 2 nights of the studio time. So her enrollments increased because it became easier for her parents. Her staff were happier because they were still working the same amount of hours, but they didn't have to come across more nights. So you can see how this works for the psychology of the parent and also just making it easier for the kids as well. Okay, the next one. So once you've printed out your hard copy, you've considered where you can keep things the same. You've then had a look at how you can stack your classes strategically. The next area I would ask you to look at is your teachers. Who's continuing, who's leaving, who's thriving, who might be starting to coast a little. I'd really just ask you to be honest here. So would I build a whole timetable around teachers? I have spoken about this before. I have done it and it did backfire, but I also know some teachers are specialists. They can only come on certain days. So you need to factor that in, but don't let it completely dictate your plan. And I think too, this is something that really blocks a lot of studio owners from getting their timetable done, because you don't know whether to, work with the teachers first or the students first, or, and I totally get that. So this is just what I'd suggest. Create your best case scenario version first. So put down the teachers that you want for each of those classes and just assume that they are coming back if you don't know 100%. If you're happy for them to be there, if there's particular classes you want them on, just jot it down on your hard copy. Write down your best case scenario version, because you can always confirm it later with your team. And so once the timetable, you've got your classes in, chat with the team. If there's something that doesn't work, then you're doing more micro movements around teachers as opposed to a complete block and not getting anything done. Okay, and remember, your teachers, they really are your biggest asset. So if you know one of them is magic with your preschoolers or consistently keeps your teens engaged, then you want to be leaning into that. You want to build a timetable that lets them shine and supports just the studio overall. Okay, now you've considered your teachers, now it's time to consider yourself. And I know that this can get missed often because, the priority is you've got a business to run. It ultimately falls on you. I get that. I know. I've been there. I don't think it's wrong. I think it just is. However, I just would love you to consider it. What is going to work for your life right now as it stands? Maybe you need to consider your family. Maybe you're a carer for your parents or for your grandparents. Your own kids, maybe they have extracurricular activities that you need to be taking them to. But also I want you to consider your energy. How much have you got in you? How much can you give? If your studio runs like a dream, but you're totally burnt out, it's not worth it. You need to build a timetable that supports you as well. So ask yourself, what nights, if any, can you have off? Do you want off? What events do you want to make space for? What would make your week feel easier? Now, you're allowed to design a business that feels good, and the timetable is just one of the powerful ways that you can do that. So, highly recommend that step. Okay, so now we have considered your teachers, we've considered yourself. Now you've essentially got a timetable together. It might be rough, but it's together. And so once you're feeling close, my next step would be suggesting having someone else look over it. Someone who's actually involved in the studio. So a manager or maybe a senior teacher, someone who knows the flow of the studio and also knows your students. Because we always have to consider the students, their ages, their abilities, their progression. Like there is so much. No wonder this is such a hard thing to comprehend. Okay, so they actually might be able to spot crossover issues. They might see bottlenecks or even just offer suggestions that you hadn't considered. We really do get tunnel vision when we are looking at something for a long time, and where we think we know best, absolutely, of course you do. However, there may be things that we're not seeing because we are so focused in on what's right in front of us. And so by having someone else put in some input, it doesn't mean you're handing over control. It just means you value their opinion or their input. And it means you're willing to be collaborative. And more often than not, it will lead to a stronger version. And I remember this, the very last timetable that I did for my studio, I remember I had sat down, I got it done. I thought it was perfect. And then I had my studio manager look at it and she said, you know, if we move this to here and we change this class to studio 2 from studio 1, you know, this would then flow into this. I'm like, so good. So good. And then I actually had a second person look over it, which was my daughter, who was a main teacher in the studio as well. And she had found a hole as well. She's like, well, you know, we could change this to this and this will then flow into this. And I'm like, amazing. And we ended up with a fabulous timetable. So that would be my next step, is just get a second pair of eyes to look over it. And if you don't have anyone, let me know, because I love it too. All right. Step 7 is okay, so now it's finalized with a little caveat. All right, so you're ready to roll, it's finalized, but you can include, and I would suggest include, the word somewhere subject to change. And it can be in really small point. Now, when you've got this, because, you know, I know we can't 100% guarantee that everything we want and lock in October is going to be the same in January. I know, and I have experienced teachers, they have plans that change. All of a sudden they were available and now they're not. I know that possibly class sizes, you don't have enough to run a class, or maybe it's so big that you need to split them. Like, I realize that there is change, but you can move into that re-enrollment process, the rollover season, with something, you know, even if it's a timetable that you have, it's a clear plan moving forward. But you're not going to lock yourself in unnecessarily if you just put subject to change. And so parents are then, they know, I mean, and the reality of life is that they're aware that things can change. So that would be the only thing. And that also will take a little bit of pressure off you as well. It's like, I can't lock it in. I don't know. Do your best. Get it to 95% and just know that there may be tweaks needed. And that's totally fine. You should be okay with that. All right. Now, this is important because your timetable is the backbone of your retention, and it sets you up for easier staffing, clearer communication, and that smoother lead up to the new year. And yes, that transitions beautifully into what I'll start talking about on the podcast and on my socials about re-enrollment and the rollover season, which is happening very soon. But that would definitely be another episode or two. All right, so in closing, I just want you to know that this process is the first layer, and there are so many variables that will come into play. If you want to dive deeper and build your 2026 timetable alongside me, I'm running a free 60-minute power hour next Thursday, September the 4th. It's at lunchtime, 12 o'clock, Australian Eastern Standard Time. This is just, it's an hour, and we're going to head down and I'm just going to talk you through the questions you need to be asking yourself, the things you need to be considering, while you're eating lunch, while you're having a cup of coffee to get you through the afternoon. Because in that session, I just want you to walk away with a clear strategic timetable overview for 2026, more confidence in your decisions, and the headspace to focus on what's actually going to move the needle for you next year. So this power hour is focusing on your timetable, but honestly, it is the start of the new trajectory as you head towards the end of 2025 and into 2026. So if you would like to be a part of that, I would love to invite you, grab a bite to eat, bring your 2025 timetable, hard copy, and we can work through that together. Now you can register right now via a link I'll leave in the show notes, or you can head over to my Instagram and just send me a DM and let me know. Maybe just put the word timetable and I will send you through the link straight away. But until next time, I just let your messy middle be messy. And by doing that, you need to be able to stay curious and know that the work that you are doing now is what sets you up for an easier, more spacious year ahead. And if you show up live, there will be a bonus. And I just want you to think custom GPT that is going to be built for you to help you with this whole process. And not just this year, but all the years to come. Another little side note too, once you work through this process that I'm going to be talking you through in this 60-minute power hour, your timetable will be set in a way that it's going to be a lot easier to replicate from next year, and then the following year, then the following year. So once you get the main formation set, that's going to be it, unless there's massive changes within your studio. So each year it's just going to be tweaked, and I'm seeing that now. So I'm seeing the studios that I worked with this time last year who have built out their timetables with me, and they're off the back of that, their studio is going so well. They're literally finished their timetable for 2026 by just moving a few things and tweaking small things. So if you are ready, it's now time to go to the printer and we're going to get this process started. If you have any questions, please reach out. Otherwise, I hopefully will see you for our free training next week. Have a great week. Thanks for tuning in to the Dance Studio Scaled podcast. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other studio owners who would love it too. And let's keep the conversation going. Follow me on Instagram at Jen Dalton for more tips, insights, and behind-the-scenes moments to help you simplify and scale your studio. Until next time, keep dreaming big and taking action. I'll see you back here soon.